Hey, how's it going, everybody? Lately, I have been really getting into modeling some stuff with my new printer. It has been a great deal of fun. I will not lie. I didn't know how enveloped I would get in it until I started doing it, actually. I knew that I would really enjoy it, that I would love having the printer and being able to realize these models into the real world. I just cannot express how awesome it is. If you like designing things, if you like making things, even if on like a creative level, if you just like using Blender to model anime stuff or whatever else, I don't know, cartoony things, just anything. I highly suggest getting a printer of any kind, really. They can be pricey depending on which ones you get, but obviously you get what you pay for. So it's hard to say, really, from my perspective, which one you should get. I personally got a specific one, which I'm not going to say here because, you know, not sponsored. They want in here, they can get the few cameos they get. But I digress. Onto the models that I've been working on. It's just a simple battery holder that I will eventually put into likely a hexapod because I was thinking about using this for a drone because I have some drone parts and everything else. However, the weight ratio for it is not good. I don't have enough power density and everything else in the design given the amount of weight. I think the weight of the holder itself is something like 80, 90 grams. And given the drone parts I have are from a drone that is 150 grams, I don't think that it'll really be able to substantially support the weight of the holder and then the batteries themselves, actually. So that's probably out. But I can use them on a hexapod. That being said, let's go right into it. I will show you a couple different iterations of this battery pack that I have made so far and where I am going to go with it in the future. The first iteration I had was just a simple block one. Obviously, this is battery holder mark 0-1. I just put in 15 holes for the batteries and I measured this to the exact specification because I'm like, I want a snug fit, right? You want it to be tight up in there. You don't want it room to jiggle around and cause issues from vibration or whatever else, especially given a flying device. You don't want you don't want loose space as much as possible. Vibration is a big issue. It's going to knock off the kilter of the wings and everything else like that. So I did exact specifications to the size. And unfortunately, the batteries did not fit. Another thing I noticed when I made this one is that when I put it into the slicer, it deleted all the bottom face holes where I would wire, the batteries through the top, the positives or the negatives through the top, and then also the bottom. So I could run these in parallel in series, and it deleted all those out. So this one was no good. That being said, it also did not have the charge ports because I have a PCB specifically designed to charge these batteries. That did not work, which led to the second iteration, which turned out better on the design perspective. Like the design of it was way better. However, when it came to print time, something about how it was sliced, it just would not print. This is the first time I tried printing it, and I didn't notice it right away that it was messing up so hard. So I got lots of extra trails. And then I've tried printing it again, thinking maybe, oh, it was just the nozzle or it wasn't heated up properly. Something fishy happened, and it was just a fluke. So I tried printing it again, and obviously that was not the case. Pretty much immediately, I have all these trailings happening, and that's no good. Did not try it a third time. Maybe I should have, but I figured it would be a better use of my time and a less waste of a product to just go on to the third iteration, which I must say is probably the best one so far. And logically, it should be, right? It's the third design, of course. And here we have it. We have the 15 holes in the faces. We have these nice little divots for the wires, and the holes in the bottom actually came out so I can wire the wire through the bottom, and it has a nice charge port. Pop that out. For this PCB I have, it has a microphone on it because I ripped these out of like recycled vapes. So I could charge a 3.7 volt battery effectively. I figured I just run all these together and just make one big battery from a bunch of smaller batteries. You know what I mean? And this design is a lot better than the other designs. And I even managed to embed the label into it properly, which honestly has been a bit of a headache because I've been using a Boolean modifier in the design and it creates some bad topology issues, which I need to work around. I've found some ways to do it at this point, but I digress. This design came out really well, I think. It's obviously not as tall as it should be to completely encase the battery so these channels actually have purpose, but I didn't want to waste a bunch of extra print material. I just wanted to make sure that it would come out good and everything else. And overall, it printed well, except on this back side, which again, I don't know what happened. It could just be Blender's 3D design software, or it could be the printer itself. I had like weird bevels on these edges. You can It's like hard to see on camera, but yeah, on these edges I have weird bevels that the printer probably doesn't like. It creates some weird bad topology, and if you have bad topology, it's not going to print right, obviously. But overall, the print came out pretty slick and sleek. I think that this one was the best iteration possible. Another thing I noticed for whatever reason is in these centers, when I used a way to fix like all the n-gons and stuff, it didn't show up until I put it in the slicer, but it created all these little divots along these intersections between the batteries, which I don't know why they happened or whatever else. But as you can see, they get larger as you go forward, which is really also weird. Don't know what happened there. But I decided I just print it anyway because, I wanted to see how it would come out. Another thing I did here was like create a connection point. You know what I mean? So this is like a channel to lead to the charge port, which again, this doesn't have the greatest depth in it as I would like it to have. So I will probably redesign that a little bit deeper, which will also save me on materials. I did a similar thing inside the charge port as I created deep weld channels along the inside diameters of these things so I could put the wire in there essentially. So the wire had a place to travel within this tight squeeze because this again is sized a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but I didn't want to have a similar issue where it just wouldn't fit. So this is 10 millimeters, or 20 millimeters fully across. So I did 22 millimeters just to make sure it would slide in there. And I realize now that I can probably, if I do the channels right, deduct another millimeter. It still is going to need 21 millimeters, even though it's 20 millimeters. You know what I mean? Just because it will not fit. It will be like you would have to force it in there, and I don't want to have to break something to get it to work. I want it to be snug. I want to be tight, like a first date. It has to be real tight. But it just would not fit otherwise if I put it at 20 millimeters. 21 or 20.5 probably still wouldn't fit because the printer can't be that precise, probably. It can be really precise and gets really nice lines, but I wouldn't trust it to get the zero point 0.5 to work, and I wouldn't trust that the 0.5 would even be enough. However, these grooves will help with that. I figure maybe at the fifth or sixth design, this will be a lot better. Another thing I noticed was these batteries I have. I only have 5 of these apparently. I've s- I salvage lots of vapes, lots and lots of vapes because they have these batteries. And you can use them in all sorts of electrical devices. So, if you know somebody that vapes and you like playing with electricity, you just remember, dude, there's good parts in there. There's, a charger, there's a pretty nice battery that you can use in all sorts of stuff. And because it has a charger, you can keep charging it. You don't, like, come on. Easy way to recycle. But what I realized is I like I said, I only have 5 of these batteries, specific ones, and I have many, many more batteries that are a slightly larger size. They're essentially almost they're only like two-thirds the height, but they're almost twice the diameter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a holder for those specific ones. So basically what will happen is there'll be about this one's height, and it'll just be a fat chunky boy, you know, which I think will actually go better with my hexapod design that I'm making right now, which realistically has very bad robotics design in it. I think I'm not super familiar with all the different ways to make joints and how that works and everything else. That being said, I do think it'll be functional just from my ability to rip basic understanding out of things I've seen before. Essentially, what I'm doing is trying to reverse engineer the design of how these robots work and how they're designed. When I come up with a problem, I probably will pivot and figure out why it's not working. And at some point, once I have a design that actually works how I can conceive of it myself without prior knowledge, at that point, I will go into more a theoretical approach where I go and find out stuff about different joints and how they pivot and everything else like that. Because we all have this basic understanding, I think, of gears and things. But yeah, those are my designs for right now. These are the ones I have been really working on, at least for the past 2 or 3 days. And I'm overall pretty happy with them. I think that they will only improve. And I hope you guys will subscribe and stick around to see more in the future because this is the start of something very beautiful as I continue, I think. Take it easy, everybody.